Today we're going to be exploring justice and truth in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Chronicles of a Death Foretold. Let's look at this first event. Following the arrest of the Vicario twins, the victimhood of Beato is explored by the town. This is on page 84 of the text. For the immense majority of the people, there was only one victim, Beato San Roman. They took it for granted that the other actors in the tragedy had been fulfilling with dignity and, even with certain grandeur, their part in the destiny that life had assigned them. Santiago Nassar had expiated the insult. The brothers Vicario had proved their status as men, and the seduced sister was in possession of her honour once more. The only one who lost everything was Beato San Roman. Firstly, looking at the word actors. So actors are people playing their part or fulfilling a role. It implies diminished responsibility, something outside of themselves, something they had to do perhaps. If we look at Santiago, we look at the Vicario brothers, and we look at Angela, are there many choices here, or are they simply people going through the actions expected? We look at the idea of justice within this paragraph. Has justice been served? If they have proven their status as men, does this mean that the Vicario brothers have dished out justice? The fact that Angela has her honour restored, is that justice for Angela? Well, Santiago Nassar has been killed. Based on his perspective, this may not seem like justice at all. The idea of justice may be different based on the perspective of the person that we are considering. Let's look further at Beato San Roman. The idea of shame and retribution is complex in the text. Well, Beato made the decision to return his bride. He has material wealth, so has he really lost everything? He wanted Zeus's house. He wanted the house of the widower, and he had that, and that remains in his possession. But is there a price for respect? The fact that he has been shamed, the fact that he's had to return his bride? Is Beato San Roman truly the victim here when we look at the plight of Angela and Santiago? I'll leave that to you to analyse. More at the town and their culpability on pages 98 and 99. But for most of those who could have done something to prevent the crime and still didn't do anything, consoled themselves with the pretext that affairs of honour are sacred monopolies, with access only for those who are part of the drama. Well, are affairs of honour sacred? This looked to be pretty public to me. However, there are also several people who do try to intervene. The butcher, Clothiad, the colonel, Christo. Is there more at play here than people simply looking the other way because this is a passionate crime? Look at the aftermath. Hortensia Balt, whose only participation was having seen the two bloodied knives that weren't bloody yet, felt so affected by the hallucination that she felt in a penitential crisis, and one day, unable to take it any longer, she ran out naked into the street. Consider the varying reactions to perhaps action or lack of action. Why are some impacted and others are not? Who is really to blame here? The next section looks at Santiago Nassar's mother. She'd locked the door at the last moment, but with the passage of time she freed herself from blame. On the other hand, she never forgave herself for having mixed up the magnificent augury of trees with the unlucky one of birds, and she succumbed to the pernicious habit of chewing paper cress seeds. Throughout the text, the suspicious nature of the town people impacts the logic of saving Santiago Nassar. Are these references to dreams any different? His mother forgives herself for the act of locking the door, which we know could have saved him if it were open. Of all things that could have saved him, was it really mixing up the dreams that mattered? Next, we look at the idea where the narrator continues to investigate and challenge that Nassar took Angela Vicario's virginity all these years after the murder. And this is on page 90 to 91. The narrator meets with Angela Vicario 27 years post the event. She would recount it in its details for anyone who wanted to hear it, except for one item that would never be cleared up. Who was the real cause of her damage? And how? And why? Because no one believed it had really been Santiago Nassar. He was a chicken hawk. He went about alone, just like his father, nipping the bud of any wayward virgin that would begin showing up in those woods. But in town, no other relationship ever came to be known, except the conventional one he maintained with Flora Miguel. The most current version, perhaps, it was the most perverse, was Angela Vicario was protecting someone who really loved her, and she had chosen Santiago's name because she thought her brothers would never dare go up against him. Now, why does the narrator still question Angela Vicario's truth? She's told him multiple times and would recount to many people that Santiago Nassar was the one. Now, if we look at the idea of the hawk being quite predatory, we can add this to our prior knowledge and the knowledge of the narrator. He knows that Santiago Nassar has committed many acts of adultery. Is it too far-fetched to believe, knowing what we know about his behaviour towards Davina Flor, that this possibly could have happened? Angela Vicario seems to be certain in the truth, yet the narrator, who we know to have a personal friendship with Santiago Nassar, still questions this. He questions this because of Santiago Nassar's status. As a wealthy and honourable man in the town, perhaps her brothers would not have attacked him in the way he did. But we know this not to be the case. Our final scene that we're looking at today is Santiago Nassar's reaction. The narrator uses this as evidence of an innocent man on page 102. Him the same as Santiago Nassar's closest friends, the victim's very behaviour during his last hours was overwhelming proof of his innocence. On the morning of his death, in fact, Santiago Nassar hadn't had a moment of doubt, in spite of the fact he knew very well what the price of the insult imputed to him was. He was aware of the prudish disposition of his world, and he must have known that the twins' simple nature was incapable of resisting an insult. No one knew Beato San Roman very well, but Santiago Nassar knew him well enough to know that underneath his worldly airs, he was as subject as anyone else to his native prejudices. So that his conscious lack of concern would have been suicide. Besides, when he finally learned that at the last moment the Vicario brothers were waiting for him to kill him, his reaction was not one of panic, as he so often has said, but rather the bewilderment of innocence. My personal impression is that he died without understanding his death. Do actions speak louder than words? Is Santiago Nassar's reaction enough? Does his wealth and status make Nassar feel invincible? He knows the price of insult, but we've just seen the previous passage where his wealth and status was questioned by the narrator as to whether the Vicario brothers would go up against him. I don't know. Perhaps he thought the same thing. Personal opinions and versions of events also mask the truth of the matter. Again, we have to question the narrator a bit here. He is a close comrade of Santiago Nassar. Again, his personal impression is based off everybody else's versions of events. The narrator has not witnessed any of this firsthand. So, what do you think? Today we're going to respond to the topic, the truth is not an essential part of the story. Discuss. A creative paragraph for you to construct. The topic sentence is, it is the consequences inflicted on the victims of the narrative, not whether it is true or false, that is the most important part of Marquez's construction. Firstly, looking at the victimhood of Beatos and Roman, but then also looking at Santiago Nassar not understanding his own death. I'll leave it to you to construct it. Good luck. If you need any help, let me know.